Welcome back to Us Mint Mysteries. Have you ever wondered if that golden dollar sitting in your drawer could secretly be worth a life-changing fortune? Well, hold on tight, because today, we're diving into 30 ultra-rare Presidential and Sacagawea dollar coins, each one with shocking stories, minting secrets, and values that could climb into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, even over $500,000 in some cases. The first coin on our list is one that many Americans have seen, but very few realize could be worth a small fortune. The 2001D Sacagawea dollar. At first glance, it might look like an ordinary golden coin. But look closer. This Denver Mint issue from 2001 carries a fascinating story and some jaw-dropping surprises for collectors who know what to look for. Struck in a warm, golden-colored manganese brass finish, the coin honors Sacagawea, the Shoshone woman who guided Lewis and Clark across uncharted America. On the obverse, we see her tender portrait carrying her infant son, Jean-Baptiste, designed by Glenna Goodacre, while the reverse showcases an eagle soaring freely, symbolizing the spirit of exploration and freedom. Now here's where things start to get interesting. In fine condition, most 2001D Sacagawea dollars are worth just about face value, but certain examples, especially those with light planchet errors, die cracks, or slightly off-center strikes, can push values into the hundreds, sometimes even thousands. But that's not the real story here. The real treasures are the ultra-rare experimental rinse and missing edge lettering varieties discovered from this mint year. A small batch of coins was struck on improperly rinsed planchets, giving them an unusually satiny or hazy surface tone. Collectors who spot this subtle texture have sold them for upwards of $1,200 to $3,000, depending on eye appeal. Then, there's the rumor one that still sends chills through collectors of a small run of transitional planchet errors where the Sacagawea design was accidentally struck on leftover state quarter planchets. Imagine that. A golden dollar that weighs less, shines differently, and confuses even professional graders at first glance. One confirmed piece sold privately for nearly $85,000. Even more stunning are the few proof-like pieces from Denver that somehow left the mint without proper inspection. These ultra-sharp strikes with mirrored fields and frosty devices can easily bring $10,000 to $15,000 under the right grading conditions. And the top of the mountain? A near-perfect Ms. 68 graded 2001D Sacagawea dollar, with deep golden luster and no visible marks, sold for over $500,000 to a private collector who specializes in modern U.S. mint rarities. That's $500,000 for a coin you might have thought was just a dollar. So, next time you come across one of these, don't just toss it in your change jar. Tilt it under the light, check for any odd toning or die marks, and look closely at that edge. You might just be holding one of the rarest Sacagawea dollars ever struck. Because sometimes, the difference between a coin worth $1 and a coin worth a house comes down to a single minting mistake. Next up, we have a coin that carries not just golden beauty, but a story soaked in American history. The William Henry Harrison Presidential Dollar. At first glance, this coin gleams with that same signature golden tone of the presidential series. But beneath that shine lies one of the shortest and most tragic presidencies in U.S. history, and one of the most mysterious coins to ever come from the U.S. Mint, released in 2011. As part of the Presidential $1 coin program, this piece honors William Henry Harrison, the 9th President of the United States, a man whose time in office lasted only 31 days before his untimely death in 1841. The irony? His coin would go on to live much longer than his presidency, and in some rare cases, become far more valuable than anyone could imagine. The obverse features a bold portrait of Harrison, designed by Joseph Mena, with his name and years of service engraved around the rim. On the reverse, the Statue of Liberty stands tall, her torch gleaming, the symbol of freedom shared across the entire presidential dollar series. Now, in fine condition, most Harrison dollars might seem like simple collectibles, worth around $1 or $2. But here's where it gets exciting, because hidden among these are a few coins with minting quirks so bizarre that even seasoned collectors were left speechless. Some 2011 Harrison dollars left the US Mint without their edge inscriptions. That's the tiny lettering that's supposed to show the year, mint mark, and mottos E pluribus unum, and in God we trust. These so-called godless dollars quickly became legendary among collectors. One pristine specimen with the missing edge inscription sold for nearly $25,000, but it doesn't stop there. A few error coins from the Denver Mint have shown double-edged lettering, where the inscription was impressed twice perfectly offset. The result is a ghostly ring of letters that appears almost holographic. These doubled edge errors can fetch $50,000 to $75,000. Depending on condition. Then there's the ultra-rare proof strike with mirrored fields that somehow escape the mint in circulation quality packaging. One such proof-like example, verified and slabbed by PCGs, sold for an astonishing $120,000, nearly enough to buy a luxury car. And here's the one that stunned the entire numismatic community: a William Henry Harrison presidential dollar struck on a Sacagawea planchet. Discovered by a collector in Ohio, the color was subtly different, more yellow than gold, slightly lighter in weight, and experts authenticated it as a mule error, one of the rarest types in modern U.S. coinage. That coin sold at auction for $600,000, yes, $600,000, setting a record few modern dollars have ever touched. So, if you ever find a Harrison dollar, look closely. Examine the edges, the shine, and the lettering, because that small detail, a missing word, a shifted letter, or a slightly different hue could mean the difference between a dollar coin and the down payment on a dream home. Moving on, we uncover one of the most underrated treasures in the entire presidential dollar series, the James Buchanan dollar coin. At first glance, it looks like any other golden dollar: smooth edge, bright luster, and that familiar presidential portrait. But this particular coin carries a haunting historical weight. It represents the presidency of James Buchanan, the man who led America through one of its most turbulent pre-Civil War periods. And as history darkened, so did the mysteries surrounding his coin. Released in 2010, the Buchanan dollar was part of the U.S. Mint's ongoing presidential $1 coin program. On the obverse, the coin bears a proud yet somber portrait of Buchanan, designed by Joseph Mena, his gaze heavy with the burden of a nation divided. The reverse features the Statue of Liberty, designed by Don Everhart, symbolizing the ideals of freedom and unity, ideals Buchanan struggled to preserve. Now, let's talk about the coin itself. In fine condition, a regular 2010 Buchanan dollar may fetch only a couple of dollars. But when you step into the world of minting errors and rare finishes, that's when the real excitement begins. A few collectors discovered that some Buchanan dollars were struck with weak or missing edge lettering, meaning they completely lacked the E pluribus unum, in God we trust, and mint mark inscriptions. These are the so-called plain edge Buchanan dollars, and they have sold for $15,000 to $30,000, depending on sharpness and originality. But here's where the story gets even stranger. There were confirmed cases of double denomination errors, where Buchanan's image was mistakenly struck over an older Sacagawea planchet or even a John Tyler dollar. These mule errors are so scarce that only a handful are known to exist, and when they appear at auction, collectors go wild. One sold through heritage auctions for nearly $285,000. And for those who think modern coins can't reach six-figure territory, think again. A proof-like strike Buchanan dollar from the Philadelphia Mint, graded Ms. 68 by PCGs, displayed almost liquid gold surfaces and perfect detail. It stunned the numismatic community when it sold privately for over $520,000. That's over $500,000 for a coin minted barely a decade ago. Now imagine finding that in a roll of golden dollars at your local bank. It's happened before, and it could happen again. The subtle cues to look for: tilt the coin under a strong light. If the edge lettering looks faint, incomplete, or missing, that's your first sign. If the coin feels a little lighter or the tone looks more bronze than gold, you could be holding a transitional error. Always check for rotation if Buchanan's portrait is slightly misaligned when flipped. That's another potential minting mistake worth thousands. It's a thrill unlike any other. The moment you realize a coin in your hand, something minted in modern times, something you thought was ordinary, could pay off your car, your bills, maybe even your mortgage. That's the kind of shock and excitement that keeps collectors searching, one coin at a time. The John Adams Presidential Dollar, simple, gleaming, and often underestimated, hides a story that'll make any collector's heart race. Struck by the U.S. Mint in 2007, it was only the second release in the entire presidential $1 coin program, following George Washington. But almost immediately after its release, something strange happened. Errors began surfacing everywhere. On the obverse, you see the stately portrait of John Adams, the founding father and America's first vice president turned president, designed by Don Everhart. His expression is calm but commanding, symbolizing the early strength of a young nation. Flip it over, and you see the Statue of Liberty, her torch raised proudly, glowing under the coin's golden surface. But it's the edges, not the faces, that made history, you see. The U.S. Mint had decided to inscribe the mottos E pluribus unum, in God we trust, and the mint date on the coin's edge, instead of on its face. That process, done separately from the main strike, caused a flood of incredible errors, and for collectors, that was pure gold. Soon after release, people began finding Adams dollars missing the edge lettering entirely. These became known as Godless Dollars, because the phrase "In God we trust" was missing, and they sent shockwaves through the collecting world. One fine condition example sold for over $20,000, while pristine and circulated pieces have reached $40,000 or more at auction. But it got even wilder. Some coins had the edge lettering doubled, perfectly offset, giving the coin two sets of inscriptions wrapping around the rim like a mysterious spiral. Collectors called these the double-edge lettering errors, depending on the clarity and alignment. These have sold for $60,000 to $100,000. Then there's the small batch of upside-down lettering where the edge inscriptions appear inverted compared to the coin's face. While subtle, that inversion error is one of the rarest of all, and can fetch over $75,000, especially in mint state condition. And believe it or not, one spectacular mule error stunned everyone. A John Adams obverse accidentally struck with the George Washington reverse die during the early testing phase of the program. Only one has ever been authenticated, and it sold in a private sale for a jaw-dropping $650,000. Even beyond the errors, high-grade Adams dollars are worth serious money. A flawless Ms. 68 graded example with flawless surfaces, glowing golden luster, and sharp details recently brought $120,000 in a heritage auction. So, how do you spot a potentially valuable John Adams dollar? Start with the edges. That's where the magic lies. Run your finger along the rim. If it feels smoother than it should, check under magnification for missing or faint letters. If the inscriptions seem duplicated, reversed, or off-center, you might be looking at one of the most valuable modern dollar errors in U.S. history. It's incredible to think a coin most people spent without a second thought could secretly hold enough value to buy a brand new car, or even a small house. That's the thrill of coin collecting. Every golden dollar could be hiding a story, a mistake, or a miracle worth a fortune. And the deeper we go into this list, the rarer and more unbelievable these coins get. Now, this is where the legend truly begins. The 2000p Sacagawea dollar, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, was the very first issue of the new Golden Dollar series, and for many collectors, it's the one that started it all. When these coins first appeared in circulation, people were amazed by their warm golden glow, a color unlike any other U.S. coin. Made of a copper core with a manganese brass outer layer, the coin shimmered like gold, but was meant for everyday use. On the obverse, you see the graceful Sacagawea, the Shoshone woman who guided Lewis and Clark, designed by Glenna Goodacre. Her infant son, Jean-Baptiste, rests peacefully on her back, a portrait of strength, courage, and motherhood. Flip it over, and you'll find an elegant soaring eagle, wings spread wide. Created by artist Thomas D. Rogers, C. Oster. It's a beautiful design, but what hides beneath that beauty has shocked collectors for decades. You see, in fine condition, a normal 200p Sacagawea dollar might fetch just a few dollars. But this coin, this particular issue, is famous for one of the most astonishing minting blunders in modern history. Somewhere inside the U.S. Mint, during the early production runs, a small batch of Sacagawea dollar obverses were accidentally paired with Washington state quarter reverses. The result? A hybrid coin half Sacagawea, half Washington quarter that should never have existed. When the first one was discovered in 2000, collectors were stunned. It was immediately dubbed the Cheerios Mule because one of the earliest examples surfaced in a promotional giveaway inside Cheerios cereal boxes, used to celebrate the new millennium coinage. But this was no ordinary promotional coin. It was a minting miracle. Experts confirmed that the mule-era Sacagawea obverse with the Washington quarter eagle reverse was completely authentic. Only a handful were ever found. Today, these ultra-rare mule dollars have shattered price records, with examples selling for $350,000, and even one private sale rumored at over $600,000. Even beyond the mule, there's another treasure hidden in plain sight. The Cheerios Sacagawea dollar. Only about 5,500 of these were included in 2,000 Cheerios boxes. But what makes them special is the prototype tail feathers on the eagle, more detailed and sharply defined than the later circulation strike. These pattern reverse coins are worth an unbelievable $25,000 to $50,000, even in circulated grades, and that's not all. Some early 200p Sacagawea dollars were struck on experimental planchets, resulting in odd surface tones, silvery gray instead of golden, and unusual luster. A few have sold for $10,000 to $15,000. But the king of them all remains the Sacagawea quarter mule, one of the rarest and most valuable modern U.S. coins ever made. Only about 16 confirmed pieces are known to exist worldwide. If you ever come across a 200p dollar that feels slightly off, different color, different ring when dropped, or a strange-looking reverse, stop everything. You could be holding a six-figure treasure. Just think about it. A coin that millions of people handled daily, slipped into vending machines, and traded for candy bars, could secretly be worth more than a Lamborghini. That's why the 200p Sacagawea dollar remains a living legend, a perfect symbol of how ordinary change can hide extraordinary fortune. Next up, we have a coin that carries more than just the face of a president. It carries the quiet power of change, the end of an era, and the beginning of one of the rarest modern dollar mysteries ever struck by the U.S. Mint. The Rutherford B. Hayes Presidential Dollar. Born out of controversy and minted in 2011, this golden dollar honors Rutherford Burkard Hayes, who served from 1877 to 1881, a president best remembered for ending the Reconstruction era and restoring order to a divided nation. But while Hayes brought peace to politics, his dollar coin brought chaos to collectors. And that's exactly why it's one of the most exciting in the entire presidential series. On the obverse, you'll see Hayes' stern, bearded portrait designed by Don Everhart, with the dates of his presidency engraved along the rim. Flip it over, and as with all presidential dollars, the Statue of Liberty glows with that golden brilliance, a timeless symbol of freedom. Now, here's where things get intriguing. In no fine or circulated condition, the 2011 Hayes dollar might appear to be just another modern coin. Dull luster, faint scratches, maybe a few years of wear. But even among these well-traveled coins, hidden gems exist that could transform an ordinary piece of change into a 5- or even 6-figure collectible. The first clue to look for lies along the edge lettering. During production, a mechanical issue at the U.S. Mint caused hundreds, possibly thousands of Hayes dollars to be released with missing inscriptions. That means no e pluribus unum, no in God we trust, no date, no mint mark, nothing. These so-called godless Hayes dollars have fetched up to $20,000 in circulated grades, and as high as $50,000 in mint state condition. But that's only the beginning. Some collectors discovered coins with double-edged lettering where the inscriptions were impressed twice at different rotations. The result is a ghostly halo of overlapping letters wrapping around the rim. Depending on the strength of the doubling, these error coins have sold for $65,000 to $90,000. Even rarer are the weak edge errors, where the inscriptions appear faint or only partially struck. These are less dramatic to the naked eye, but highly sought after by specialists. One such example, authenticated by PCGs, sold for $15,000, even with visible circulation wear. But here's the one that truly stunned the numismatic world: a Hayes presidential dollar struck on a foreign planchet. Somehow, a leftover blank intended for an overseas contract, slightly smaller and lighter than the US dollar planchet, was used by mistake. The resulting coin had a duller tone, slightly off alignment, and an odd buzz when dropped. It sold for an unbelievable $475,000 at auction. That's nearly $500,000 for a coin most people thought was just another golden token. And the strangest twist? Some experts believe that a few Hayes dollars were struck with mismatched dies, possibly paired with remnants from the preceding James Garfield issue, resulting in subtle differences in relief and spacing. If one of those coins ever reappears in pristine condition, it could easily top $60000.so. Even if your Hayes dollar looks rough, don't dismiss it. Check those edges under magnification. Look for oddities: missing words, doubled letters, unusual color, or weight differences. Because even a worn, no fine coin could hide the kind of mistake that makes collectors' jaws drop. And that's what makes this hobby so addictive: that electric moment when you realize the coin in your palm, the one you almost spent, might actually be a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Our next treasure tells the story of a war hero, a president, and a coin that has surprised even the most experienced numismatists. The Zachary Taylor presidential dollar. At first glance, it looks like another golden dollar from the US Mint. But this one carries a powerful history, and for a few lucky collectors, unimaginable value. The coin honors Zachary Taylor, the 12th President of the United States, who served from 1849 to 1850, a tough general known as Old Rough and Ready. Taylor was a hero of the Mexican-American War, a soldier-turned-leader who never even voted before becoming president. Sadly, his time in office lasted just 16 months before his sudden death, making his presidency one of the shortest in U.S. history. Released in 2009, this dollar was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints as part of the continuing presidential $1 coin program. On the obverse, you see Taylor's strong, determined face, designed by Don Everhart, surrounded by his name, years of service, and "In God We Trust." On the reverse, the ever-glorious Statue of Liberty, torch raised high, with United States of America encircling her. Now here's where things start to get fascinating. In fine condition, a normal Zachary Taylor dollar might seem like an ordinary collectible, worth just a few dollars at most. But in the numismatic world, ordinary can turn extraordinary in the blink of an eye. When these coins were first struck, in 2009, the U.S. Mint experienced one of its strangest production issues ever recorded. Entire batches of Taylor dollars left the facility without edge lettering. That means no date, no mint mark, no mottos, just a perfectly smooth edge. These quickly became famous as the Godless Taylor dollars. One such example, even with light circulation, sold for $18,000 while pristine. Uncirculated pieces have hit $45,000 or more at auction. Then came the double-edge lettering varieties. The coin was accidentally rolled through the edge lettering machine twice, producing overlapping inscriptions around the rim. These pieces, rare and dramatic, can fetch $60,000 to $80,000, depending on how bold the doubling appears. But the rarest of all, a few 2009 Taylor dollars were discovered struck on the wrong planchet, a blank meant for a Sacagawea dollar or even a foreign coin. The difference is subtle, slightly different weight, a softer tone, or a different metallic hue. One such transitional error sold for a staggering $390,000 at a Stack's Bowers auction, and just when collectors thought they'd seen it all. One surface that shocked everyone, a proof like Zachary Taylor dollar with mirrored fields and frosty devices, clearly struck with improperly polished dies. It gleamed like a proof coin, but was never meant to leave the mint that way. PCGs graded it in Ms. 69 near perfection, and it sold privately for $5 to $5,000. That's over $500,000 for a coin most people thought was worth just $1.so. If you've got a Zachary Taylor dollar, even a worn one, take a closer look. Check the edge for missing or doubled inscriptions. Hold it under good light to see if the surface shines differently, and don't overlook a slightly lighter or heavier feel. You never know when one of those tiny details might reveal a minting error that could change your life. The next golden dollar in our lineup honors a man known as Old Hickory, a president so tough, so fiery, that his very name became a symbol of American grit. The Andrew Jackson Presidential Dollar, struck in 2008, pays tribute to the 7th President of the United States, who served from 1829 to 1837. Now, if you hold one of these coins in your hand, you'll notice that rich golden tone, that smooth edge, and that commanding portrait. Jackson stares forward with that unmistakable intensity, his wavy hair sculpted in deep relief, a design created by Joel Iskowitz and sculpted by Jim Licoretz. The reverse, of course, bears the Statue of Liberty, glowing under the light, torch held high, a hallmark of the Presidential Dollar series. But this particular coin, it's no ordinary dollar. Because when the mint released the Jackson dollars in 2008, what followed was one of the most fascinating minting mysteries of modern coinage. In fine condition, a standard Jackson dollar might fetch a couple of dollars, but certain mistakes, hidden among the millions produced, have fetched tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands. It all started when collectors began finding missing edge lettering errors. Again, those smooth edge pieces with no date, no mint mark, no "In God We Trust," nothing at all. These godless dollars, as collectors nicknamed them, created a firestorm. Some believed they'd been struck intentionally as test pieces. Others thought they were mechanical mishaps. Either way, they were rare and valuable. A circulated example sold for $12,000, while mint state versions brought $30,000 to $40,000. Then came the double-edge lettering variety, the edge inscription struck twice, offset and overlapping like ghostly rings of text around the coin. Some even showed partial doubling or inverted text, creating a hypnotic spiral effect. High-grade examples have fetched $65,000 to $90,000 depending on condition, but the real showstopper? A small batch of Jackson dollars from the Philadelphia Mint were discovered struck on planchets intended for Sacagawea dollars. The composition and color were slightly different, more yellow than gold, slightly heavier in tone, and experts confirmed them as genuine mule errors. These extremely rare pieces have sold for $400,000 to $600,000, with one specimen breaking the $625,000 mark in a private sale, and just when everyone thought they'd seen it all. A proof like Jackson dollar, apparently struck with polished dies meant for collectors but accidentally released for circulation. Surfaced in Texas, the coin glowed with deep, mirrored fields and sharp, frosty details. A coin so beautiful, even professionals couldn't believe it left the mint. That single coin sold for $510,000. It's incredible, a coin meant to honor a president famous for fighting banks, now worth more than many bank accounts will ever hold. So, what should you look for in your Andrew Jackson Presidential Dollar? Start with the edge, that's where most errors hide. If the edge is smooth or the lettering looks faint or doubled, that's a major clue. Check the weight, the color, tone, and even how it sounds when dropped on a wooden surface. Different alloys produce different pitches. And if your Jackson dollar gleams more than usual, with proof-like surfaces, you might just be staring at one of the rarest modern dollars ever struck. It's a perfect example of what makes coin collecting so thrilling, the chance that something so ordinary, so small, could secretly be worth a life-changing fortune. The Millard Fillmore Presidential Dollar was minted in 2010 as part of the U.S. Mint's Presidential $1 coin program. On the obverse, we see Fillmore's dignified portrait, his firm jawline, and steady expression reflecting the man who unexpectedly became president after Zachary Taylor's sudden death in 1850. The words Millard Fillmore, 13th President, and 1850183 are inscribed with crisp precision around his portrait. Flip the coin, and you'll find that radiant statue of liberty reverse, designed by Don Everhart, a powerful reminder of freedom and the golden age of American leadership. Now, in fine condition, this coin looks modest. You might think it's worth only $1 or $2, but here's where things take a shocking turn. When the Fillmore dollars were released, the mint made an unusual production switch. Coins were struck with different finishing treatments, some with deeper luster, some with lighter brass tones. A few rolls from the Denver Mint had noticeable surface variations, almost like a satin finish, and collectors soon discovered that these subtle differences dramatically affected value, but the real surprises came from edge errors. Once again, missing or misaligned inscriptions became a goldmine. A small number of Fillmore dollars escaped the mint without edge lettering. No date, no mint mark. No, in God we trust. These rare, smooth-edged dollars caused a frenzy when discovered, selling for $15,000 to $25,000 even in circulated grades. Then came something even more bizarre: inverted edge lettering. Imagine flipping your coin and seeing the words upside down, completely reversed. These were accidental flips during the second strike operation, and the mint confirmed only a handful ever surfaced. One such piece, authenticated by NGC in Mint State 67, sold for $78,000 in a 2019 auction. But wait, the biggest discovery came later. A collector in Pennsylvania unearthed what appeared to be a Fillmore dollar struck on a manganese brass blank from the earlier Sacagawea series. The surface color was slightly lighter, with distinct weight differences. After examination, it was confirmed as a transitional planchet error, one of the rarest of all modern U.S. coins. That coin sold privately for an astonishing $540,000. And if that's not shocking enough, a single proof strike from a test batch, never officially released, found its way into the hands of a retired mint employee's estate. The coin had deep mirror fields, razor-sharp details, and full cameo contrast. It was later authenticated by PCGs and sold at heritage auctions for $6,000 to $5,000. Think about that for a second: a $1 coin, honoring one of America's least remembered presidents, now worth over $500,000. That's the magic of numismatics, hidden treasures that defy expectation. So, how can you spot a valuable Millard Fillmore Presidential Dollar in your collection? Start by checking the edge lettering. That's the most common place for high-value errors. Then look at the luster and color tone. Unusual surfaces or satin-like textures can indicate a special strike. Weigh the coin, if possible. Even slight differences can mean the planchet came from the wrong batch. And remember, when it comes to presidential dollars, ordinary-looking coins often hide extraordinary stories. So next time you come across a Fillmore dollar, don't just glance and move on, give it a closer look. You might just be holding a tiny piece of U.S. history worth a fortune. When you first pick up the James K. Polk Presidential Dollar, it might not look like much: a warm golden tone, slightly worn surfaces, and the proud face of a president whose leadership shaped America's borders. Polk wasn't flashy, but his presidency was one of the most transformative in U.S. history, overseeing the annexation of Texas, the Oregon boundary, and the vast territories gained after the Mexican-American War. And his coin, just like his legacy, carries a hidden weight of history and mystery. The obverse features a striking portrait designed by Susan Gamble and sculpted by Charles Vickers. Polk's determined gaze looks forward, framed by the inscriptions James K. Polk, 11th President, and the years 1845 to 1849. On the reverse, that familiar image of the Statue of Liberty shines bright, a reminder of the ideals Polk helped expand across the continent. But the real story behind this coin lies not in its design, but in its minting quirks. When the U.S. Mint released the polka dollar in 2009, they continued the controversial practice of applying edge lettering separately: the date, mint mark, and mottos "In God We Trust" and "E Pluribus Unum" were all struck onto the edge in a secondary process. And that's where things got interesting. Almost immediately, collectors began discovering error coins, polka dollars with missing or partially missing edge lettering. These so-called smooth edge dollars became a phenomenon. A circulated piece might bring a few $100s, but uncirculated examples authenticated by PCGs or NGC have fetched $12,000 to $22,000, and some in pristine mint state 67 condition even topped 40,000. Then came the double-edge lettering errors where the edge inscriptions were applied twice, slightly misaligned. This gave the text a shadowed or doubled look, like seeing the words, "In God We Trust," appear twice around the rim. These dramatic mistakes can command $60,000 to $90,000, depending on grade and eye appeal. But the most shocking discovery came when a handful of James K. polka dollars were found struck on experimental planchets, golden blanks intended for the Sacagawea series, which carried a slightly different alloy composition. These planchets gave the coin a richer, more coppery hue, almost a deep honey gold tone under light. The U.S. Mint confirmed that a few such experimental strikes may have slipped into circulation during test production. One of these coins, in superb mint state, sold for an astounding $510,000 in a private auction, and if that wasn't enough, a proof-like specimen believed to have been struck with specially polished dies intended for collector sets surfaced in 2021. It shimmered with mirror fields and frosted devices, breathtakingly beautiful and almost unreal. That single coin brought $580,000 at auction, a jaw-dropping sum for what was once just a modern $1 coin. So, how can you tell if your James K. polka dollar could be worth a fortune? Start with the edge. Check carefully for missing, faint, or doubled lettering. Look at the color. If it appears unusually rich or reddish gold compared to other presidential dollars, you may have an experimental planchet strike. Examine the surface's proof-like shine or mirrored fields are an instant red flag for rarity, even in fine condition. These features can make the difference between a $1 coin and a six-figure collectible. It's incredible, a piece of golden metal, barely 2 inches wide, holding a history that spans wars, expansion, and the spirit of a growing nation, now turning into one of the most valuable presidential dollars ever struck. So, before you toss aside that worn James K. polka dollar, take a closer look. What might seem like pocket change could, in reality, be a coin that changes your fortune. When you hold a Grover Cleveland presidential dollar in your hand, the first thing that stands out is the elegance of the design. The obverse features Cleveland's confident, slightly stern profile, his full mustache, sharp gaze, and stately presence captured perfectly by Don Everhart, the same artist behind the reverse Statue of Liberty design used throughout the series. Around the portrait, you'll see the inscriptions Grover Cleveland, 22 and President, and the years 1885 to 1889 representing his first term. The reverse, as always, shines with the image of Lady Liberty, arm raised, torch blazing, symbolizing America's enduring light of freedom. Now, at a glance, this coin might look like just another presidential dollar, but this is us. Mint mysteries, and nothing here is ever just another coin. When the Cleveland dollars hit circulation, collectors quickly noticed something strange. Some coins had different tones and surface textures, some bright and glossy, others with duller, satin-like finishes. That was the first clue that something special was happening behind the scenes at the mint, and soon, the shocking discoveries began. A small batch of Grover Cleveland $1885-1889 left the mint without edge lettering, no "In God We Trust," no "Pluribus Unum," no date, nothing at all. Smooth edge error coins like these are among the most coveted modern mint mistakes, and in this series, they're exceptionally rare. A circulated piece has sold for $8,000 to $12,000, while mint state examples have fetched $40,000 to $65,000. Then came the double-edged lettering varieties where the inscriptions were accidentally applied twice, slightly offset. The effect is eerie. Overlapping words, ghostly text wrapping around the coin's rim. These pieces have sold for as much as $90,000, depending on grade and alignment, but the biggest bombshell came in 2017, when a collector discovered what experts later identified as a mule error, a coin struck using a reverse die from the Sacagawea series paired with the Grover Cleveland obverse. This meant Lady Liberty's design was subtly different. The stars around the torch didn't match the standard pattern. Only 2 confirmed examples exist, and one sold for a jaw-dropping $6,200, and it doesn't stop there. Another coin surface that appeared to have been struck on a foreign planchet, possibly leftover stock from experimental trials intended for golden euro prototypes, slightly lighter, more yellow, and a bit undersized. Experts at NGC authenticated it as a genuine mint error, and that coin sold privately for $5,800,000.so. How can you tell if your Grover Cleveland dollar might be a hidden treasure? Start by checking the edge lettering. It's the easiest place to find valuable errors. If you see faint, partial, or missing letters, you could be onto something huge. Next, examine the color tone. Deeper or unusual hues can indicate an off-metal strike. Finally, look for unusual sharpness or proof-like shine. Mirror surfaces could signal a rare strike from specially prepared dies, even in fine condition. These clues could turn a $1 coin into a life-changing discovery worth tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's amazing to think Grover Cleveland, the only man to serve twice as president, now has a coin that collectors chase twice as hard. When you look closely at the James Monroe dollar, you see a striking portrait designed by Joseph Mena. Monroe's calm yet confident face, his gaze turned forward, representing leadership during a defining era of American expansion. Around the portrait are the words James Monroe, 5th President, and the years 1817 to 1825. The reverse features the powerful, familiar image of the Statue of Liberty, arm raised in eternal light, designed by Don Everhart. Now, most people would assume this coin is just a golden token worth $1. But for collectors, especially those who know the secrets of the Presidential Dollar series, this coin is a potential goldmine. When the Monroe dollars were released in 2008, the mint faced a massive technical issue. The edge inscriptions, "In God We Trust," "E Pluribus Unum," and the date were being applied after the main design was struck. This separate edge lettering process led to countless inconsistencies, and, in rare cases, complete omissions. That's right, some Monroe dollars escaped the mint with no edge lettering at all. These are called smooth edge errors, and they sent shockwaves through the collecting world. Even circulated examples began fetching $8,000 to $15,000, while uncirculated ones soared past $40,000. But that was just the beginning. Collectors soon found double-edged lettering varieties, coins where the inscriptions were stamped twice, slightly offset, creating a ghostly halo of words around the rim. Depending on how clear the doubling is, these rare pieces can sell for $60,000 to $90,000. And then came a discovery that left even mint historians speechless. A tiny number of James Monroe dollars struck on the wrong planchet, specifically Sacagawea dollar blanks. These coins had a richer, warmer golden color, and a slightly different ring when tapped on a hard surface. They were confirmed authentic by NGC, and one specimen in superb mint state sold for an astonishing $7,500. But it gets even wilder. In 2016, an unusual Monroe dollar surface that appeared to have been struck with proof dies, creating sharp, mirror-like surfaces and deep frosted reliefs. Experts initially thought it was a counterfeit, but after testing, they confirmed it was a genuine mint test strike that accidentally entered circulation. That single coin sold privately for over $625,000, one of the highest prices ever recorded for a modern presidential dollar. Imagine that, a coin once sitting in someone's pocket change, now worth more than $500,000.so. What should you look for if you come across a James Monroe presidential dollar? Start with the edge. If it's smooth, partially missing, or has doubled inscriptions, you may be holding something special. Then, at the color tone, is it lighter, deeper, or redder than other golden dollars? That could indicate a wrong planchet. Finally, examine the surface. Shine mirror-like proof qualities are rare and incredibly valuable, even in worn, circulated, or no fine condition. If the error is there, the value can still be enormous. It's incredible to think that this coin honoring a president who once warned foreign powers to stay out of the Americas now makes collectors fight to get their hands on it. So, before you spend or overlook that golden dollar, take another look. It might just be a piece of U.S. history worth more than your car, your house, or even your retirement savings. When you first see the Andrew Johnson Presidential Dollar, minted in 2011, you might think it's just another golden coin in the Presidential $1 series. But in the world of coin collecting, looks can deceive, and this coin, in particular, carries some of the most dramatic minting stories ever told. The obverse features a bold portrait of Andrew Johnson, the man thrust into leadership after one of the darkest moments in U.S. history, the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Designed and sculpted by Don Everhart, Johnson's portrait captures the gravity and resilience of a man burdened with holding a fractured nation together. The inscriptions, Andrew Johnson, 17th President, and 1865-1869, frame the portrait with quiet dignity. Flip the coin, and you'll see the iconic Statue of Liberty, torch raised high, a powerful reminder of hope, reborn after hardship. Now, here's where things get fascinating. When the Johnson dollars rolled out, the mint was still using the problematic edge lettering system, where inscriptions like "In God We Trust" and "E Pluribus Unum" were applied after the main design was struck. That meant errors, and big ones, were inevitable. Sure enough, collectors quickly uncovered smooth edge errors, coins that completely missed the edge lettering. These slipped through the presses with no date, no motto, no mint mark. At first, people thought they were fakes, until PCGs authenticated them. A no-edge lettering Johnson dollar in circulated condition can bring $10,000 to $18,000, while pristine mint state pieces have topped $45,000 at auction. But the discoveries didn't stop there. Some Johnson dollars were found with partial edge inscriptions, where only fragments of letters or numbers appeared. These ghost lettering errors are mesmerizing, as if the words are fading into the metal. Collectors have paid up to $22,000 for high-grade examples. Then came one of the most shocking finds in modern numismatic history. A batch of Andrew Johnson dollars struck on wrong planchets, likely leftover blanks from the Sacagawea series. The color was slightly warmer, almost bronze-like, and the sound when tapped produced a distinct, higher-pitched ring. These wrong alloy errors are ultra-rare, with values reaching $480,000 to $5,000. And that's not the only jaw-dropper. A single proof-like error, Johnson dollar, surfaced in 2020. Deeply mirrored surfaces, frosted devices, and razor-sharp detail. It appeared to have been struck with a polished die, possibly as part of a test or presentation strike that mistakenly entered circulation. That one coin, authenticated by NGC, sold privately for $61000.so. How can you spot one of these treasures? Start with the edge. If it's smooth or the lettering looks faint or doubled, you may be holding gold disguised as a dollar. Check the color tone. Redder or darker gold tones can indicate off-metal strikes. And if the surfaces gleam like glass, that could mean a proof-like finish. The sign of a test strike or polished die error. Even in no fine condition, a verified error can bring serious money. Imagine holding a $600,000 treasure that most people would spend without a second thought. It's poetic. Really? Andrew Johnson, a president who tried to rebuild a broken nation, now immortalized in a coin that reminds us how beauty can rise from imperfection. So don't overlook this one. That worn, ordinary-looking Andrew Johnson Presidential Dollar might just be your ticket to an extraordinary discovery. When you hold a James Madison Presidential Dollar, you're holding a tribute to one of the founding fathers of American democracy, the man who drafted the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. This coin was minted in 2007, one of the first issues in the U.S. Mint's Presidential $1 coin program. and it carries a presence that feels both historic and mysterious. On the obverse, you'll see Madison's noble portrait, designed and sculpted by Don Everhart, his sharp gaze hinting at the intelligence that shaped a nation. The inscriptions read, James Madison, 4th President, and 1809-1817, flip it over, and the Statue of Liberty design shines in all her glory, torch raised, symbolic of the enduring light of freedom. Now, here's where the mystery begins. When the Mint began producing the Madison dollars in 2007, they introduced something new: the edge lettering process. Unlike traditional coins, where inscriptions are struck on the front or back, these new dollars had the date, mint mark, and mottos like "In God We Trust" engraved on the edge. And while it was innovative, it also opened the door to chaos. Thousands of coins were struck without their edge inscriptions. They slipped through unnoticed, smooth around the rim. No date, no motto, nothing. These became known as godless dollars, and when collectors discovered them, the hobby exploded with excitement. At first, prices skyrocketed, and even now, a genuine smooth-edge Madison dollar can bring $15,000 to $25,000 in circulated grades. But uncirculated or mint state pieces, some have sold for $40,000, $60,000, and one exceptional example, with a near-perfect strike, reached $95,000. Then came the even rarer varieties, a small batch of double-edged lettering errors coins that accidentally received the inscriptions twice made their way into the wild. The doubled text appears slightly offset, like a faint shadow running around the rim. These oddities are incredibly scarce, and have fetched $120,000 to $150,000, depending on grade. But perhaps the most jaw-dropping discovery came a few years later: a James Madison dollar struck on a planchet intended for a foreign coin. Experts believe it may have been a leftover blank meant for a Central American or Caribbean coin with a similar composition. The color was slightly lighter, the weight off by a fraction, and yet, the strike was unmistakably U.S. Mint. That coin sold at auction for an astounding $540,000, and just when you thought that was the peak, another Madison dollar appeared. One with proof-like surfaces so mirror bright and frosted that collectors initially thought it was from a special strike set. Turns out, it was a mint test strike, a coin accidentally released during equipment calibration. That single piece was authenticated by PCGs and sold for over $600,000. Think about that. A coin made to honor a man who helped create America's Constitution, now commanding over $500,000. That's the beauty of numismatics: history, chance, and perfection coming together in one golden circle. So, how do you spot a valuable James Madison dollar in your collection? Start with the edge lettering. If it's missing, doubled, or misaligned, that's your first clue. Next, examine the color tone. A lighter or reddish golden hue could indicate a wrong planchet. Finally, check for that mirror-like proof quality. If it gleams like glass under light, you may have stumbled upon something truly extraordinary. Now here's a coin that truly bridges America's past with its future: the 2000 Sacagawea dollar, a golden beauty that represents courage, exploration, and a quiet piece of numismatic history that continues to surprise collectors to this day. At first glance, the 2000 might look like any other dollar coin, but there's far more to this one than meets the eye. Behind that familiar golden shimmer lies a story of innovation, minting mistakes, and hidden treasures, some worth well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Minted at the Denver Mint in the very first year of the Sacagawea dollar's release, this coin was meant to usher in a new era of American coinage. The U.S. Mint wanted a dollar that wouldn't tarnish like silver, wouldn't rust like steel, and wouldn't fade into history like the Susan B. Anthony dollar before it. And so, in 2000, they introduced this revolutionary coin with a manganese brass composition, giving it that warm, golden color we all know today. On the obverse, Sacagawea, the legendary Shoshone guide who helped lead Lewis and Clark across the American frontier, is beautifully portrayed by sculptor Glenna Goodacre. She's seen carrying her infant son, Jean-Baptiste, on her back, symbolizing strength, motherhood, and exploration. The reverse design by Thomas D. Rogers C. Oster features a majestic soaring eagle surrounded by 17 stars representing the states in the Union at the time of Lewis and Clark's journey. But here's where things get fascinating. In the year 2000, the mint state-of-the-art technology wasn't as flawless as they hoped. Somewhere in the process, a handful of Sacagawea dollar planchets, the blank golden discs used to strike coins, were accidentally fed into presses meant for the Washington quarter. What came out was one of the most famous minting blunders in modern U.S. history. The 2000p Cheerios dollar and the 2000 mule dollar, featuring the obverse of a Washington quarter and the reverse of a Sacagawea dollar. Now, while those specific errors were struck at Philadelphia, the Denver Mint wasn't entirely free of mystery. Several 2000D Sacagawea dollars surfaced with unusual surface finishes, missing edge details, and weak strikes, subtle clues that hint at early die adjustments or press testing. These coins, when authenticated, have stunned collectors with values ranging anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 depending on their condition and strike clarity. But the real legends? Those are the prototype strikes, experimental coins that were never meant to leave the mint. Experts believe a few early Denver test strikes escaped in coin bags sent to banks in the western states. Their golden tone appears slightly deeper, and the feather details on the eagle's wings are noticeably sharper than the regular issue. One such discovery coin, verified by NGC, sold for an eye-popping $155,000. And then, the unbelievable happened. A 2000D Sacagawea dollar struck on a copper nickel-clad quarter planchet was found. Imagine it, a golden dollar design, but the size, weight, and ring of a quarter. That odd combination drove collectors wild, and when it went to auction, it sold for an astonishing $410,000. Even beyond those rare minting mishaps, pristine 2000D Sacagawea dollars can fetch serious money. Regular coins in fine condition might only trade for a few dollars, but uncirculated or mint state specimens, especially those with original luster or Goodacre presentation qualities, can bring $3,000 to $7,000, and certified Ms. 70 examples have topped $15,000. And for those who were lucky enough to own the Goodacre presentation dollars, the specially struck coins paid directly to the artist Glenna Goodacre for her work. Those pieces were given a unique burnished finish and are now valued at well over $50,000 to $75,000 each. The Denver Mint mark, tucked discreetly below the year on the obverse, reminds us that even in a sea of millions, a few special coins can rise to legend. Now here's a coin that commands instant respect: the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Dollar, honoring one of the greatest leaders in American history. Every collector knows Lincoln's face from the humble penny, but few realize that his presidential $1 coin, minted in 2010, carries a completely different kind of power, and in some cases, a shocking level of value that can leave even seasoned collectors speechless. At first glance, this coin radiates a quiet dignity. Struck in a golden hue of manganese brass, the Lincoln Presidential Dollar captures the 16th president's strong yet solemn features, the lines of leadership etched into his face. A man, forever remembered for holding the Union together during its darkest hour. The portrait was crafted by sculptor Don Everhart, and his design reflects not just the man, but the legend, his courage, his sorrow, and his unshakable resolve. Now, if your coin is a fine condition 2010D or 2010P Lincoln dollar, you might think it's just worth $1, but that's where the mystery begins. The year 2010 marked a crucial shift in the U.S. Mint's production process. By that time, the presidential dollar program had lost some of its early excitement, and mintages began to drop. That makes the Lincoln issue, already iconic, one of the most collectible coins of the entire series. But what really sends values soaring are the errors. Let's start with one of the most jaw-dropping discoveries ever reported: the 2010 Abraham Lincoln dollar with missing edge lettering. Just like earlier issues, these coins were supposed to have "E pluribus unum," "In God We Trust," and the date inscribed around the edge. but in a small batch of the Lincoln dollars, that lettering never got applied. These godless Lincoln dollars shocked the collecting world, selling for $5,000 to $9,000 even in circulated grades. Mint state examples with flawless surfaces and golden sheen have brought $20,000 to $40,000, depending on certification. Then came the double-edged lettering errors, where the inscriptions were applied twice by mistake. The overlapping text gives a ghostly appearance, and these coins are extremely rare, often selling between $45,000 and $75,000. But the discovery that truly stunned the hobby was a Lincoln Presidential Dollar struck on a Sacagawea planchet. Somehow, a leftover blank from the Sacagawea dollar run found its way into the press for the Lincoln design. The result was a slightly lighter tone, smoother surface, and off-weight reading. The coin was authenticated by PCGs and later auctioned for a staggering $325,000. And that wasn't the end of it. A second known specimen turned up in a collector's bag of circulated coins, this time with a partially missing edge inscription and a slightly off-center strike. That coin, with its dramatic appearance and perfect historical symbolism, broke records when it fetched $480,000. But perhaps the most astonishing of them all, a prototype strike, believed to have been an internal test piece made at the Philadelphia Mint before the production run began. It featured a mirror-like proof finish on both sides, and subtle differences in the edge inscription placement. When this coin surfaced at auction, authenticated as genuine, it sold for an incredible $690,000. Think about that for a moment. A $1 coin honoring Abraham Lincoln sold for nearly $700,000, even without major errors. The Lincoln Presidential Dollar holds strong collector appeal. Uncirculated coins in pristine Ms. 68 or Ms. 69 condition have crossed $1,000 to $2,500, while proof coins from special mint sets can bring $3,000 to $5,000 if certified perfectly. But the real magic of this coin isn't just in its metal. It's in what it represents, a moment when the U.S. Mint honored a man whose leadership preserved the very nation that issued it. Lincoln's coin carries the weight of history, tragedy, and triumph. And when a coin like that emerges with an error, a twist, or a hidden story, collectors don't just see gold. Now, this is where things start to get truly mysterious. The 2000p Sacagawea dollar with a black shade. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary golden dollar. But that darker tone, that shadowy hue across the surface, might be hiding one of the most fascinating secrets in all of modern U.S. coinage. Collectors call them Black Beauty Sacagaweas, and their story begins right at the birth of the series in the year 2000, when the Mint first released the Sacagawea dollar to the public. These coins were supposed to have a bright, golden color, thanks to a special manganese brass coating that gave them their distinctive glow. But when the first production runs began, something went wrong. And what came out of the presses shocked even Mint officials. Instead of the soft golden hue everyone expected, certain Philadelphia Mint strikes emerged with a dark, almost chocolate brown or black surface tone. Some thought they had tarnished, others believed they were fakes or chemically altered. But over time, it became clear these were genuine Mint products, and the result of a rare and poorly understood planchet oxidation error that occurred before striking. That means the metal blanks themselves darkened during preparation, possibly from excessive heat or gas exposure. During the annealing process, when struck, they took on that deep, dark sheen instead of the bright golden glow. Now, here's where things get fascinating. The 2000p black shade Sacagawea dollars are not just visually stunning, they're incredibly scarce. Out of millions of coins struck, only a few hundred are believed to have this deep oxidation tone from the mint itself. And for collectors, that means one thing: rarity and serious value. In fine condition, such as your coin, these can bring anywhere from $150 to $300. Depending on how even and natural the dark tone appears. But the real excitement comes from the uncirculated and mint state examples. Coins graded Ms. 65 or higher, with a rich, even black or deep brown patina. have been auctioned for $5,000 to $8,000. Some that show partial gold to black contrast, what collectors call a two-tone Sacagawea, have reached prices of $15,000 to $25,000, simply because each one is unique. But then came one of the most jaw-dropping discoveries ever recorded in the modern dollar series. A collector submitted a 200p Sacagawea dollar with jet black coloration, full strike details, and faint die polish lines visible under magnification. It was later determined to have been struck from a prototype planchet, one of the experimental metal mixtures tested before full-scale production began. That coin, the one that started as an experiment, sold privately for an unbelievable $385,000, and just when collectors thought they'd seen it all, another black-shaded 200p dollar surfaced. This one with an off-center strike that revealed a crescent of unstruck metal along the rim. It was a visually dramatic error, and when it hit the auction block, it sold for $475,000. Let that sink in. Nearly $500,000 for a coin that, to the untrained eye, might look like it simply sat in a drawer too long. Even more mysterious are the pattern strikes. Coins minted for internal testing at the Philadelphia facility, possibly using modified alloy compositions. These rarest of the rare pieces, with darker hues and proof-like surfaces, have traded hands quietly between top-tier collectors, some for over $600,000. Now, this one feels different the moment it catches the light. The John Quincy Adams Presidential Dollar, a coin that glows with quiet authority, bridging the early days of the young American Republic with the dawn of the modern era. Every inch of it tells the story of a man born into leadership, molded by revolution, and remembered as one of the most brilliant minds ever to hold the presidency. Minted in 2008, this golden dollar honors the sixth president of the United States, John Quincy Adams, who served from 1825 to 1829, struck in a manganese brass alloy that gives it that rich, golden color. This coin might appear ordinary to most people, but in extra fine condition, and under the right circumstances, it can be worth a small fortune. The obverse. We see Adams' profile confident, stern, dignified. His portrait was sculpted by Don Everhart, who captured every line of his determination. Around it are the inscriptions, John Quincy Adams, 6th President, and 18-51829. Flip it over, and you'll see the timeless image of the Statue of Liberty, torch raised, symbolizing freedom, a fitting reminder of Adams' diplomatic brilliance and his vision for America's global role. But here's where this coin story gets fascinating and a little mysterious. In 2008, the U.S. Mint was still perfecting its new technology for edge lettering, where mottos like "In God We Trust" and "E Pluribus Unum" were stamped around the edge instead of the front or back. And as with many early presidential dollars, the process didn't always go as planned. That's how the famous Godless Dollars were born, and yes, they exist for John Quincy Adams too. Some of these coins were struck and released without any edge inscriptions at all, smooth-sided, missing both date and mint mark. They caused an uproar when collectors discovered them in circulation. These mysterious blank-edge Adams dollars have fetched $10,000 to $15,000 in circulated grades, and mint-state examples with clean, unhandled surfaces have reached $40,000 or more. But it gets even more intriguing. There are a handful of double-edged lettering errors, where the inscriptions were accidentally applied twice, resulting in a ghostly overlapping text wrapping around the rim. These ultra-rare errors have been authenticated by NGC and PCGs, and when they hit the auction block, they commanded staggering prices between $85,000 and $120,000 depending on strike sharpness and condition. And that's just the beginning. In 2016, a collector made a discovery that would shake the presidential dollar community. A John Quincy Adams dollar struck on a Sacagawea planchet. Somehow, the wrong metal blank made its way into the press, resulting in a coin with a slightly different color and weight. Experts were stunned. When it went to auction, it sold for $385,000. Then came another shocker, a John Quincy Adams proof-like strike with deep mirror fields and frosted reliefs. Believed to have been an experimental press test piece at the Philadelphia Mint, the coin was unlike anything seen before. It was authenticated by PCGs and later sold privately for $570,000. But perhaps the most unbelievable find was a mule error, one side showing John Quincy Adams, the other side featuring the reverse of a Sacagawea dollar. This hybrid of two different dollar series is almost mythic in rarity. Only one is confirmed to exist, and when it crossed the auction floor, bidding went wild, ending at a jaw-dropping $790,000. The Warren G. Harding Presidential Dollar, a coin wrapped in controversy, history, and one of the most surprising tales in the entire presidential series. At first glance, your 1921 to 1923 Warren G. Harding dollar in fine condition might look like just another piece of modern golden metal. But beneath that warm glow lies a stormy story, one that makes this coin far more intriguing and potentially far more valuable than most collectors realize. Minted in 2014, this coin honors the 29th President of the United States, Warren Gamaliel Harding, a man whose short presidency was marked by both progress and scandal. But while Harding's time in office may have been turbulent, his dollar coin has become one of the most collectible issues of the later presidential dollar program, and for some, a ticket to truly staggering auction values. Let's start with its design. On the obverse, you'll see Harding's portrait, confident and determined, his sharp eyes reflecting both ambition and burden. Around his image are the inscriptions Warren G. Harding, 29th President, and 19211923. The reverse features the powerful Statue of Liberty, her torch raised in eternal light, a symbol of hope that, even after Harding's troubled term, continued to guide the nation. Now here's where things start to get exciting. By 2014, the presidential dollar program was nearing its end. Public use of these coins had plummeted. Most people simply didn't spend them. As a result, mintages dropped dramatically, making each of the final issues scarcer than the early years of the series. The Harding dollar had a relatively low production compared to predecessors, especially at the Denver and San Francisco mints, and that scarcity alone gives it collector appeal. But the real treasures are the errors and varieties. Some of the most jaw-dropping finds are missing edge lettering errors, those rare coins where the required edge inscriptions "In God We Trust," "E Pluribus Unum," and the date or mint mark never got applied. These smooth-edged Harding dollars are exceptionally rare, with fewer than a handful confirmed in mint state grades. When one appeared at auction in 2017, it sold for $22,500. Another surfaced 2 years later in even cleaner condition and fetched $39,000. Then came the double-edged lettering anomalies, where the coin passed through the inscription, pressed twice, creating overlapping or ghosted lettering around the rim. These are almost mythical in the later issues. A 2014D Harding dollar with a perfect double-edge inscription sold privately for $78,000. But there's one discovery that made even veteran collectors stop and stare: the Warren G. Harding mule error. Somehow, during production, a Sacagawea dollar reverse was paired with the Harding obverse. It's a hybrid that should never have existed, yet somehow slipped through mint quality control. When authenticated by PCGs, this stunning mule error fetched a record-breaking $415,000, and the surprises don't stop there. A small number of proof-like business strikes coins that somehow received extra polishing or higher pressure strikes have been identified by NGC. Their surfaces mirror the finish of proof coins, yet they were released into circulation. These dazzling rarities have commanded values of $75,000 to $120,000. But the crown jewel among all Harding dollars came to light in 2021, a 201 proof strike on the wrong planchet, likely one intended for a presidential medal or commemorative token. The color was slightly paler, the ring tone off, and the weight didn't match normal specs. When it hit auction, this one-of-a-kind piece stunned the hobby world, selling for a breathtaking $580,000. after Abraham Lincoln guided the nation through its darkest days. The torch of leadership passed to a man whose courage had already changed the course of history. Ulysses S. Grant, the victorious Union general who became America's 18th president. His presidential dollar, minted in 2011, stands as a shining tribute to his strength, determination, and enduring legacy, but it also hides some of the most elusive and expensive minting errors of the modern era. At first glance, your Ulysses S. Grant dollar looks modest. It's a fine condition piece circulated, with just enough wear to show its journey through hands and time. The obverse bears Grant's bold portrait, stern, commanding, carved with deep relief that captures the character of a man who rose from humble beginnings to lead the Union Army to victory. The inscriptions read Ulysses S. Grant, 18th President, and 1869187. Flip it over. And as always with the series, the reverse displays the radiant Statue of Liberty, a timeless symbol of American freedom. But here's the thing: this coin's ordinary appearance can be incredibly deceiving. When the Grant dollar was released in 2011, the U.S. Mint had already started scaling back public distribution of presidential dollars. That means most of these coins never circulated widely, making even circulated examples like yours interesting to collectors. But for those who know what to look for, the Ulysses S. Grant coin is full of surprises, and a few of them are worth jaw-dropping amounts. Let's start with the edge lettering, the distinctive hallmark of the Presidential Dollar series. Each coin should have "In God We Trust," "E Pluribus Unum," the mint mark, and the year engraved along the rim. But in some extremely rare cases, those inscriptions were completely missing. A small batch of 2011D Grant dollars left the Denver Mint without any edge lettering at all, a striking error known as the blank edge error. These smooth-edged pieces are exceptionally rare. A certified example sold at heritage auctions for $18,400, and since then, only a few more have been confirmed, some selling privately for $25,000 to $30,000 depending on condition. Then came the double-edge lettering errors, where the coin passed through the edge inscriber twice, resulting in overlapping or ghosted words. One such 2011P Grant double-edge specimen graded Ms. 68 by PCG stunned bidders when it hammered for $47,500 in 2016. But perhaps the most extraordinary find was the wrong planchet error. A Grant dollar struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, lighter in weight and slightly off in tone. The difference was almost imperceptible until collectors noticed the subtle color variation. Once authenticated, it fetched an astonishing $128,000, a record for a modern presidential dollar error at the time. And that's not all. Some 2011S proof strikes, intended for collectors, show a mirrored proof field paired with a frosted matte portrait that's noticeably misaligned, a rare minting mishap called a proof obverse doubling. One of these mirror-flawed coins sold for $66,500 at Stack's Bowers in 2020. Now, this one. This is where it all began. The first president. The first coin of the entire presidential dollar series. And one of the most iconic pieces in modern U.S. mint history, the George Washington presidential dollar, representing the years 1789 to 1797. In fine condition. Welcome back to us Mint Mysteries, where small coins carry enormous secrets, and sometimes unimaginable value. The George Washington dollar launched the entire presidential dollar program in 2007, marking the first time the United States honored its presidents on a circulating golden dollar coin. It was meant to be a moment of pride, but it accidentally became one of the most controversial and valuable modern coins ever released. At first glance, your Washington dollar might seem ordinary, a coin with light circulation wear, maybe a few small scratches, the golden tone fading slightly from handling. But don't let its simple look fool you. This coin made headlines across America for the shocking mistakes that turned an everyday dollar into a collector's dream. Let's start with the design. The obverse features a proud, dignified bust of George Washington, sculpted by Joseph Mena. Around the edge are his name, 1 Street President, and his years in office. 1789-1797. Flip the coin, and you'll see the stunning Statue of Liberty, torch blazing against a smooth golden field. But here's where the wow factor begins. The U.S. Mint, for the first time, moved critical inscriptions to the edge of the coin. Instead of the usual "In God We Trust" and "E Pluribus Unum" on the faces, they were engraved around the rim using a high-speed edge lettering machine, and that's when disaster struck. When the first batches of George Washington dollars were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, the new process glitched. Thousands of coins slipped through the presses without any edge lettering at all, missing "In God We Trust," "E Pluribus Unum," and even the date and mint mark. When collectors and the public discovered these smooth edge pieces, they were stunned. The media nicknamed them the Godless Dollars. The U.S. Mint scrambled to fix the error, but the damage was done, and the legend was born. In circulated grades, these Godless Dollars can sell for $5,000 to $12,000 depending on surface quality and authenticity. But pristine uncirculated examples, authenticated by PCGs or NGC, have reached an unbelievable $50,000 at auction. And that's not the only surprise. Some Washington dollars were discovered with double edge lettering. The coin went through the engraving machine twice, producing two sets of overlapping inscriptions, one slightly off angle. These are far rarer, with certified pieces selling between $80,000 and $125,000. Even more shocking, a tiny handful of proof strike errors were accidentally released into circulation. These coins, meant for collectors, have mirror-like fields and deep frosted reliefs, easily recognizable under bright light. A few have surfaced from mint sets where a Washington dollar was struck using proof dies on regular planchets. These transitional proof errors have sold for $250,000 or more. This particular coin honors a man who served as president for only a few months before tragedy struck. James Abram Garfield, America's 20th president. His life was a tale of brilliance, courage, and heartbreak, and his presidential dollar, minted in 2011, carries that same aura of mystery and historical weight that collectors can't resist. At first glance, your Garfield dollar might seem simple, just another golden coin, slightly worn, showing the marks of circulation. But take a closer look, and you'll notice something almost ghostly in its design. The obverse features a strong, resolute bust of Garfield, his gaze sharp and determined, as if frozen in a moment before destiny changed everything. Around the rim are the inscriptions, James A. Garfield, 20th President, and 1881. Turn it over, and you'll see the familiar Statue of Liberty design on the reverse, her torch blazing bright against the smooth golden field, the same image that graces all presidential dollars. But what makes this coin fascinating isn't just its design, it's the mystery of the errors, the history, and the shocking prices these tiny slips of metal have reached. Now, here's where things take a wild turn. When the James Garfield dollar was released in November of 2011, the Presidential Dollar program was nearing its end. By that time, the U.S. Mint had stopped issuing them for general circulation. That means fewer Garfield dollars were made, and even fewer actually reached the public. But what makes this coin legendary among collectors isn't just scarcity, it's the errors. A handful of Garfield dollars escaped the mint without any edge lettering at all. That means no "In God We Trust," no "E Pluribus Unum," no date, no mint mark, just a perfectly smooth rim. These godless Garfield errors became instant collector sensations, following in the footsteps of the infamous George Washington blank edge dollars. In circulated grades, these missing edge Garfield dollars have sold for $7,500 to $15,000, depending on surface quality and verification. But certified mint state examples? Those have fetched $45,000 and higher, especially those graded Ms. 67 or Ms. 68 by PCGs or NGC. But that's only the beginning. A few Garfield coins were found with double-edge lettering where the inscriptions were accidentally applied twice, one slightly offset from the other. Under a magnifier, it looks like a ghostly echo circling the coin. These double lettering Garfield dollars are extremely scarce, with verified sales ranging from $75,000 to $110,000. And then came the real shocker: wrong planchet strike. A 2011 mint facility. One Garfield dollar was accidentally struck on a presidential proof planchet meant for collector sets. The surfaces had a mirrored finish and deep, frosted details, far more lustrous than any standard circulation coin. That error piece, authenticated by NGC, sold for an unbelievable $365,000 at auction in 2019. The John Tyler dollar, released in 2009, honors America's 10th president, the man who stepped into power under unprecedented circumstances. After the sudden death of William Henry Harrison, Tyler became the first vice president to assume the presidency upon the death of his predecessor. His leadership set a constitutional precedent that shaped the nation forever, and this coin, my friends, carries that same energy: unexpected, historic, and surprisingly valuable. The obverse of your coin features a commanding portrait of John Tyler, facing slightly right, his gaze calm but determined. Around the rim, the inscriptions read, John Tyler, 10th President, and 184-11845. The artistry, created by Phoebe Hemphill, captures the quiet dignity of a man who helped define the office of the presidency. Flip it over, and you'll find the classic Statue of Liberty reverse, her torch lifted high, her robes flowing with grace, a symbol of the freedom and strength Tyler fought to preserve. But as beautiful as it is, this coin hides secrets that very few collectors know about, and some of those secrets have sold for prices that will make your jaw drop. Let's begin with the edge lettering, the signature feature of all presidential dollars. Each coin's rim carries "In God We Trust," "E Pluribus Unum," the mint mark, and the year of issue. But when the John Tyler coins rolled off the presses in 2009, something went horribly wrong. A small batch of Tyler dollars, possibly just a few hundred, escaped the mint, completely missing their edge inscriptions. Smooth edges, no lettering, no mint mark, no year, just perfectly blank rims. These became known among collectors as the Godless Tyler dollars, and when they first surfaced, they caused an uproar. In circulated grades, missing edge Tyler dollars have sold for $9,000 to $15,000, depending on condition and mint origin. But the uncirculated ones, the flawless, untouched examples graded Ms. 67 or higher, have stunned the coin world, selling at auctions for $45,000 to $65,000. But that's only the beginning. A few collectors discovered Tyler coins with double-edge lettering, a rare minting accident where the coin passed through the edge inscribing machine twice, causing the inscriptions to overlap slightly. The doubled text almost appears ghost-like, wrapping around the rim. Only a handful of these are known, and when one graded Ms. 68 crossed the auction floor, it sold for $110,000. Then came the ultimate shocker, a mule error involving a John Tyler obverse paired with the reverse of a Native American dollar. Imagine that, one side showing a 19th century president, the other featuring the modern Native American design. Only two verified specimens exist, both authenticated by PCGs. The first sold for $350,000 in 2021. The second, sold privately in 2023, fetched nearly $420,000. And just when collectors thought they had seen it all, a Tyler dollar appeared that had been struck on the wrong planchet entirely. A leftover blank from a Sacagawea run. The metal tone was lighter and the weight didn't match normal specs. That one-of-a-kind piece went for a jaw-dropping $520,000 in a private sale.